रात्रीच्या वेळेस काढते ना आतापासून कशा. शकत नाही पेशंट.
हॅलो, ऐकू येतंय? Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, all. This is Govind from Oasis Fertility. I'll just brief you about short introduction about Oasis Fertility. Oasis Fertility is a unit of Sadhguru Healthcare Services Private Limited, founded in 2009. Our founders are Dr. Durga Rao ma'am and Mr. Kiran sir. We are an ICMR registered and ISO certified organization. We are also a member of ISRM and Foxy societies. Our Oasis Fertility is selected as a Power Brand 2018, 2019 and 2020 by IVF India. We are recipient of the Best Asian Healthcare Brand 2019 from the Economic Times Group. We are the largest chain of fertility clinics in Telugu state, second largest South, and third largest in India by Times of India 4 times in a row. Currently, we are operating 12 centers across the country. Currently, we are doing 3,000 plus IVF cycles and 3,000 IUI cycles annually. So far, we made 30,000 happy families. We have a collective clinical experience of 300 years. We have 30 consultant doctors working with us. We have dedicated embryology lab in each centers with 20 embryologist team. We are high on technology. Technologies like EWS, ARTIS, Gary Embryoscope. We also have a dedicated exclusive male fertility clinic, which is AndroLife. We have a dedicated wing of academic as well, which is an Oshram, in which we conduct academic programs. So introduction about Dr. Nilesh sir, Dr. Ashwini ma'am will give. Ma'am, over to you.
Good afternoon all. Myself, Dr. Shivangi Patil, Academic Coordinator of FPM. I welcome all participants. Our today's speaker, Dr. Nilesh Balkode sir, and Team Oasis Fertility Pune on the behalf of Family Physician Association. I welcome our President, Dr. Sarika Bhoir Madam, our Secretary, Dr. Ajit Patil sir, and our Treasurer, Dr. Yogesh Patil sir. Let me introduce our Family Physician Association, that is FPA. It has completed 4.5 years now. We have 700 plus registered members of all the batches from PCMC and Pune with 100 plus consultants. We have different departments like academic, sports, cultural, and social, under which we organize many events and activities. Under academic department, we have organized certificate course in fertility in association with Oasis Fertility Center, Pune. So now I request our Secretary, Dr. Ajit Patil sir, to give introduction of our today's speaker, Dr. Nilesh Balkode sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shivangi Patil ma'am. Good afternoon all, and I welcome all the participants and Dr. Nilesh Balkode sir on behalf of FPA. Dr. Nilesh Balkode sir, he is MS DNB, MNAMS FIAGE, Fellowship in Reproductive Medicine, Diploma in Gynec Endoscopy, Clinical Head and Fertility Specialist, Pune. Sir is Clinical Head of Oasis Fertility, Pune. Dr. Nilesh Balkode offers a decade-long distinctive experience and expertise in the field of the infertility, reproductive medicine and gynec endoscopy. He is renowned for the healing infertile cases with a good success rate and giving the joy of motherhood to many with his expertise and compassionate care. He has brought smiles on the face of the thousands of infertile couples. He successfully handled more than 1,000 successful cases of operative laparoscopy, around 2,500 cases of diagnostic and operative hysteroscopy, especially hysteroscopy in myomectomies. He has been a faculty of reproductive medicine by Germany. He was invited to deliver the guest lectures at the various national and the international conferences, done articles indexed in the national and international journals, edited numbers of the books. Welcome, Dr. Nilesh Balkode sir. I request Dr. Nilesh Balkode sir to start the today's lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Ajit Patil sir, for those kind words. Really humbled to receive a warm greetings from FPA. At the outset, I would like to thank all the organizing team, the office bearers of FPA, Dr. Ajit Patil sir, Secretary Dr. Sarika Bhoir madam, the President of FPA, Dr. Yogesh Patil sir, the Treasurer, and last but not the least, Dr. Shivangi Patil madam, who had organized this academic event for all of you. I hope I'll be giving clear messages for you in your practice. So this is not just a theoretical lecture. I wish that you should carry home some feedbacks or some practical points from this lecture. This is very, very important. Any of your queries, I would like to answer them. So I'll keep my lecture very short so that you can get the points. Any queries during the lecture, you can ask me at the end of the lecture. If you have any queries during your practice, that also you can ask me at the end of the lecture. So we are going to have this 3 lecture series. First lecture is very common lecture, that is ovulation induction, which is the first form of fertility treatment. Second lecture will be on IUI and semen analysis. And the third lecture will be on introduction and basics of IVF technology, what new we have, what new we offer, and what you should know about IVF, what are latest is there. So this will be the lecture series, after which you will be receiving a certificate from Oasis Fertility regarding participation. We will be having all the list of candidates who have actively participated and remained till the end, so that we will be awarding certificates to all of these candidates. So thank you FPA for this. I'll just be sharing my screen now. Okay. Shivangi madam, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So today's topic is ovulation induction. We all know success is no accident. It is hard work, perseverance, learning, studying, sacrifice, and most of all, love of what you are doing or learning to do. So it is very important to keep on learning at each stage of life. Learning never stops, and then only you can become successful. So why is success so important? As we all know that fertility is a very gloomy field where you can give success by any of these methods which we can use. So there is a spectrum of treatment of fertility. We start from the gonadotropin. We start with the ovulation induction part, and we can go up to the IVF and latest advanced technologies ICSI. So each one of this will have a different success rate. So our counseling, our management of the patient will depend upon the age of the patient. We can see the age is the most important criteria. The age of the woman is very important criteria regarding success. As the age goes on increasing more than 40, the success rate in each of these techniques will be reduced. So in the spectrum of fertility treatment, we start with the ovulation induction. We have with ovulation induction with gonadotropins. We have the IUI, we have IVM technology, and we have the IVF or ICSI technology. Each of these will give a different success rate. If we see the ovulation induction with oral agents, it will give you a success rate of around 10% if the age is less. And it will give a success rate of around 20% if you are using gonadotropins. So is success really important? So definitely for maintaining our patient rapport, for achieving a proper final outcome, success is really important. So how can we improve our success? So first part of treatment initially is when a couple comes to you, is the evaluation part. So this is not written in the slide, but just you need to listen to me that whenever infertile couple comes to us, the infertility evaluation is very necessary. And husband and wife together should be consulted. And the first investigation which you advise to a couple is the semen analysis, because you have to see for the male factor infertility in a couple, and then you have to come to the female factors. As we all know, if we see 100 cases of infertility, 30% of cases are due to female infertility, 30% are due to male infertility, 30% are due to both, that they can be having both causes in male as well as in female, and 10% cases are where you may not be able to find the cause, which is called as unexplained infertility. So whenever you are seeing an infertile couple, the investigation of infertile couple is very important, and then only you proceed with the treatment. If the investigations in the semen analysis, first investigation you do, after that you see for the ovaries of the woman. In the ovaries, you need to see the number of follicles. This is called as ovarian reserve testing. So the number of follicles is also seen. Along with that, if it is ovulation is occurring or not, that is also seen it by a follicle monitoring scan. Along with that, you need to see the uterine size, shape, if there are any problems with the uterus. Then you need to see for the tubal patency, whether the tubes are patent or not. So all these investigations are done. If you find a cause for that, you treat that cause first. If you are not able to find the cause, then you need to give the treatment to the patient as unexplained infertility. So the first form of treatment is ovulation induction. The next form of treatment is super ovulation with IUI. That means you produce more than one follicle and you do a intrauterine insemination or IUI. So for IUI, you can use tablets such as clomiphene citrate, letrozole, or you can use gonadotropins in the form of FSH, HMG, and so on. For many years, ovulation induction has been a subject of controversies because you never know what is the most ideal ovulation induction agent. So in today's lecture, we are going to see in which scenarios which agent has to be used. So the most commonly used ovulation induction agent is clomiphene citrate, and the main indication of using clomiphene citrate is a normogonadotrophic, normoprolactinemic, anovulatory infertility. What do we mean by this? That is, the FSH and LH levels are normal. Then the prolactin levels are also normal. And if the patient is having anovulation, that is, she is not ovulating, in these patients, clomiphene citrate is a very good drug which can be used. In cases of unexplained infertility, where we don't find the cause, in those patients also we can use clomiphene citrate. What is the dosage and what is the important side effect? So the most important thing which we should keep in our mind is to avoid multiple pregnancies. Like clomiphene citrate can cause 2 or 3 follicles to grow, and this can lead to multiple pregnancies such as twin pregnancy, triplet pregnancy. So we should be avoiding that. And ovarian hyperstimulation, that is excessively stimulating the ovaries and causing a complication which may land up the patient in problem, should be avoided. So for this, the starting dose of clomiphene citrate is 50 milligram per day for 5 days. So if the body mass index, if the weight of the patient is normal, then this is the starting dose. If the patient is on an overweight side or the body mass index is little bit higher, 20, more than 23, in those patients you can start with a dose of 100 milligrams per day for 5 days. What is the maximum dose which I am using? It is 150 milligrams per day. So you can use 3 tablets of 50 milligram or 150 milligram single tablet for 5 days duration. So this is started on day 2 of cycle. We give it till around day 6 of cycle, and after day 6 we advise either LH monitoring, that is whether the ovulation is occurring or not. We monitor it by measurement of LH levels. This is done by urinary LH kits or by a sonography, which is by a follicle monitoring scan. Now, if we are giving clomiphene, but there is no Razi, can we mute all participants so that we have a clear chat right now? So what do we mean by CC resistance of clomiphene citrate failure? That if the patient fails to respond to clomiphene citrate, we have given a proper dose. Even if we have increased the dose, then also for 2 successive cycles, there is no response, there is no follicle which is growing. Then this is called as clomiphene citrate resistance. The body is not giving response to clomiphene citrate. What are the options of treating a clomiphene citrate resistance? So you can give clomiphene citrate for a prolonged duration. So if you are giving for 5 days, this dose can be increased for 5 more days if possible. But that has got a risk of OHSS. If it is a patient of PCOD, then clomiphene citrate resistance is more common. So in these patients, you can add dexamethasone tablet if the DHEA levels are high. Then what else you can do? So mostly this clomiphene citrate resistance takes place in PCOD patients where the LH levels are quite high. So in these patients, you can give 1 month of oral contraceptive pills. We know that the oral contraceptive pills are in different dosages. So you can use either overall L or overall G for 1 month and then start stimulation. This can give you better results. Suppose if that is also not giving you results, then you have an option of laparoscopic ovarian drilling for those patients of PCOD who are not responding to medical line of management. In those patients, we can do laparoscopy. For obese patients with clinical sonographic features such as your PCOD, who have high insulin levels, in those patients we can start metformin, which is a oral hypoglycemic agent and insulin sensitizer, which will cause better ovulation than only clomiphene. So metformin can be added to the treatment. If all these fail, we can shift to another drug, which is the aromatase inhibitor, which is called as letrozole. So if letrozole is feasible, it can use. Otherwise, you can add gonadotropin to clomiphene citrate. But whenever you are adding gonadotropin to clomiphene citrate, you need to be careful because this can cause not a single follicle to grow, but many follicles can grow, and this can cause ovarian hyperstimulation. So what is important is that you monitor the patient very well whenever you are adding gonadotropin. So this is combined therapy of CC with gonadotropin, clomiphene citrate with gonadotropin. And the last option is only gonadotropin, where you just add gonadotropin, you don't give CC. This category of patients again requires a very intensive monitoring because gonadotropin, whenever you are giving, the patient may respond very high, and this is called as hyperstimulation. So that risk has to be prevented. Now, what do we do whenever we are giving clomiphene citrate? So whenever we are giving clomiphene citrate, it is a low-cost, simple and effective way of monitoring is basal body temperature. However, it is a very crude method. Whenever you are showing a rise of 0.5 degrees Celsius rise of temperature, it will indicate ovulation. But the best method is doing the ultrasound monitoring for this patient, where you will see how many number of follicles are growing, at what rate are they growing. So for a normal cycle of 28 days, the follicle usually grows at around 14th day of the cycle. Sometimes you may have to give a trigger for rupture. Sometimes it may rupture on its own. What are the bad effects of clomiphene citrate? So clomiphene citrate, as we all know, is the anti-estrogen. It acts at the level of brain, and it will prevent the estrogen action on the brain. And this will cause a rise in the FSH and LH levels, which will cause rise in the size of the follicle. So this clomiphene citrate has anti-estrogenic effect on the brain, but it also causes the anti-estrogenic effect on the endometrium. It also causes anti-estrogenic effect other areas also. So it causes thin endometrium. That is, the endometrium doesn't grow to that extent. So this is called as thin endometrium and poor receptivity of the endometrium. So how we can prevent this? So lower dose of clomiphene citrate is better. If you are increasing the dose, you may have to give estrogen to support the endometrium to grow, so that the endometrial receptivity is also better. So introduce supplementary estrogen therapy. Introduce clomiphene citrate on day 1. This will cause less side effect on the endometrium later on. Or switch to gonadotropin therapy. If you are seeing that the clomiphene is causing too much suppression of endometrium. So what is the when do we call this as thin endometrium? So usually the endometrial thickness should be more than 7 millimeter at the time of ovulation. If it is less than 7 millimeter, the cycle results will be poor. Which hormones we can monitor? So it is not necessary to always do a hormonal testing whenever you are using clomiphene citrate. However, if the LH levels are high, your response to clomiphene citrate might vary, and therefore monitoring of LH levels can sometimes be very important. So abnormal response is characterized by significantly higher LH-FSH ratio, which is seen in PCOD patients, and very high levels of estrogen. So this E2 is estrogen. So if there are very high levels of estrogen, then also it will indicate that you are landing up in hyperstimulation. Now suppose CC fails, it is not effective. Whatever method we have tried along with CC, it is not effective. Then in that case, we can shift to letrozole, which is an aromatase inhibitor. We can shift to another drug, which is tamoxifen, which is the first generation aromatase inhibitor. So what is the important advantage of this? No estrogen receptor binding is seen. It only affects the final conversion of androgen to estrogen, and therefore the estrogen content of the body reduces. Therefore, the estrogen receptor binding does not occur. Therefore, letrozole does not have any effect on the endometrium and cervical mucus, and therefore the thickness of endometrium is not affected. This is a very good point about letrozole. Now, what is aromatase? So it is a cytochrome 450 enzyme which converts the androgens to estrogen. Which are the androgens? Testosterone, androstenedione. So these are converted to estrogens, estradiol and estrol, by the enzyme aromatase. Aromatase inhibitors like letrozole will prevent this conversion, and therefore less of estrogen is produced in the body, and therefore less of estrogen causes less suppression of the pituitary and therefore high FSH levels, which lead to the ovulation induction agent role. The first generation aromatase inhibitor is tamoxifen. However, I am not using tamoxifen because this is not a FDA approved drug. The second generation is a fadrozole. Again, I am not using this. The third generation is letrozole. It is a completely selective aromatase inhibitor and a very good drug for ovulation induction. So letrozole can be used from a dose of 2.5 milligram and maximum to a dose of around 7.5 milligram. It was introduced in 1997 as a new drug in ovulation induction. Before that, it was used as an antifungal. As I have already told, it inhibits the enzyme aromatase, which is by binding to cytochrome P450. And how does this act? This will reduce the estrogen synthesis, and therefore it will remove the negative feedback of estrogen on the pituitary, and therefore increase the FSH and LH secretion. Once the FSH and LH secretion rises, this will stimulate the follicle formation in the ovary. So it may block by binding the brain aromatase also. Unlike clomiphene citrate, there is no downregulation of estrogen receptors, and it has got a very short half-life, and therefore it allows the development of endometrium. In which cases we should use letrozole, in which cases we should use clomiphene. So suppose a patient is ovulating normally and she has got regular cycles, she is not a case of PCOD, her egg count is not very high, not very low. In those patients, the drug of choice is clomiphene citrate. But suppose a patient is a case of PCOD, where the number of follicles is very high. How do we diagnose PCOD? If the ovarian volume is more than 10 cc, if the number of follicles in each ovary is more than 20, then we call it as a case of PCOD. So polycystic ovaries, the drug of choice is letrozole. Whenever we are using clomiphene citrate and it fails, so all clomiphene citrate resistant cases or failure cases, we will use letrozole. And cases of unexplained infertility where we want only a single baby, we don't want multiple gestation, then in those cases also letrozole is a drug of choice. It is used in a dose of 2.5 milligram per day from day 2 to day 6, and it can be increased, the dose can be increased. Gonadotrophins can be added if the response to letrozole is poor, and we can trigger with HCG at around the follicle size of around 20 millimeter. So we have letrozole. This was a trial which was conducted 2.5 milligram versus 5 milligram. Which one is better? So for this, it was given, and we can see that whenever recombinant FSH was used along with letrozole, the results were better. So single letrozole versus recombinant FSH is better, but we'll come to that. What is the protocol of giving letrozole? So letrozole is usually started from day 2 or day 3, and it is continued till around day 7. or day 6. If you're starting on day 2, then it will be day 6. If you're starting on day 3, it will be day 7. So this is the normal protocol. If the follicle size is more than 18 millimeter, we can trigger. However, I wait till 20 millimeter. If there is no response with this or poor response with this, we can add FSH. And this FSH should be added in a very low dose. If the patient is normally ovulating, we can add 75 international units. But if the patient is a case of PCOD, then you should use a very low dose, which is half this dose, which is 37.5 you should use. And then at around the follicle size of 18 to 20 millimeter, you can trigger with HCG. This can be used in a dose of 5,000 international units or maximum 10,000 international units should be used for trigger. So this is the protocol of using letrozole in PCOD patients. So before the treatment of the cycle, you can use metformin. So this can sometimes help you in stimulation. Also, if the LH-FSH ratio is very high, LH is higher than FSH, then in that case, you can add oral contraceptive pill in the previous cycle. Then on day 2 or day 3, you start letrozole for 5 days. Then at this letrozole treatment is stopped, and then you observe for the follicle. Suppose the follicle doesn't grow here, then you give the option to the patient of starting gonadotropins at around day 8. So in PCOD, it is very tricky. Sometimes the follicle will grow only on letrozole. Sometimes you have to add gonadotropins at day 8. But sometimes adding gonadotropins at day 8 may not also help. In that case, you have to start gonadotropin.
And which is the interface of us with the environment. So I will be starting to teach skin after a break of 5 minutes, where I will be teaching skin from aesthetic point of view. I know you all know skin, but it is all from the anatomy and physiology. Here we will be learning skin from the aesthetic part. So just let's have a 5 minutes break and we'll be back.
Hello.
Are you all understanding what I'm saying? Is there any communication issue?
Hello. Okay. I don't know. So we have to mute all the participants so that there is no disturbance during the lecture. So this is about letrozole in PCOD patients. So whenever this letrozole was used in PCOD patients, it gave very good results. So for PCOD patients, the ovulation induction of agent of choice should be always be letrozole, because this will cause monofollicular development. In PCOD patients, there are very large, very high number of follicles. And if you are giving clomiphene citrate, there is a very, very high risk of the patient landing up in ovarian hyperstimulation. Also, if you are using gonadotropins, then also the patient will land up in hyperstimulation. So it is better to give letrozole for PCOD patients. If we see the multiple pregnancy rate, the twin pregnancy, triplet pregnancy, these rates are very low with letrozole. And then after that, the rates are the rates increase as we go on adding gonadotropins or we are using clomiphene citrate. So clomiphene citrate with gonadotropins have got the highest rate of multiple pregnancy. Is letrozole safe? Definitely, it has got a short half-life. It doesn't have any anti-estrogenic effect. So there is no deleterious effect on oocyte maturation, final maturation of the follicle and the embryo as well. What if all this treatment fails? So suppose if clomiphene citrate and letrozole is not effective, what do we do? What options we have? So the next option is gonadotropin therapy. So gonadotropins are injections which can be given to women to achieve ovulation. Gonadotropin therapy requires very close monitoring to prevent ovarian hyperstimulation and multiple pregnancy. So I would recommend those who are using gonadotropins should have got a very good radiologist who does the follicle scan by a transvaginal sonography, because I have seen radiologists not doing very good scans for follicle monitoring. I have seen the patients coming to me and saying that the follicle has ruptured, and when I have done the scan, the follicle is not ruptured. So a good radiologist is very much necessary whenever you are using gonadotropins. If you are using gonadotropins, the most important risk is ovarian hyperstimulation, where the number of follicles maturing is quite high, and this can give you a this can predispose the patient to the risk of ovarian hyperstimulation. So to avoid this, you should do a very good ultrasound monitoring of the patient. Which all gonadotrophins are available? So we have urinary gonadotrophins and recombinant gonadotrophins. In urinary gonadotrophins, we have two types. It is HMG, which contains FSH and LH in same concentration, 50-50%. Then we have plain urinary FSH, which contains 95% FSH and 5% LH. Then we have highly purified FSH, which contains 99% of FSH. So this is very good form. And then recombinant FSH, which contains 99.9% pure FSH. So this is the best form which is available, but it is very costly. So as the purification increases, the cost also increases. So this is the least costly and this is the highest costly drug. Now, giving only gonadotrophins will cause a very high cost to the patient. So what is an alternative? We can use clomiphene citrate along with gonadotrophin. Again, this should be used only in those patients who are not PCOD. Because if you add these two drugs, then both of them are going to act synergistically and can cause problems with the patient. So we can use it either starting them together on day 2, which exposes the patient to some risk, or we can use it in sequential fashion. Like you give clomiphene citrate first, then on day 7, you see for the follicles. If they are not grown, then add HMG. So sequential fashion is also there, or a simultaneous fashion is also there for starting this gonadotrophins. So whenever you are using gonadotrophins, endogenous LH surge can occur a little prior, and therefore you need to be careful. In these patients, you should not wait for the follicle to mature more than 20 millimeter. Once the follicle becomes 18 millimeter, you can trigger, because these patients, if the number of follicles is more, then this can cause more number of estrogen coming into the circulation, and this can cause premature LH surge, and this will hamper your ovulation. Now, what are the treatment regimens? There is one thing called as fixed dose regimen. Then you have individual dose adjustment therapy and combined therapy. I personally believe individual dose adjustment is better. So fixed dose HMG is where you don't change the dose of HMG. You start with a very low dose. Once you are using it for IUI, or once you are using it for ovulation induction, the dose should be very low. If it is a normal patient, normal means the ovulation is occurring properly, the cycle is regular. In these patients, you need to give it in a dose of 75 international units. If it is a case of PCOD, then you need to reduce the dose to 37.5, half the dose of what you are doing in a normal patient. So daily administration can be given for 9 to 12 days, and then you give a trigger of 5,000 to 10,000 IU of HCG. However, the cost of therapy of daily administration of gonadotrophins will increase. Approximately, the cost of therapy will go to around 8 to 10,000 if you are using daily HMG injections in a dose of 75 IU. There are different protocols of giving HMG. So this is the protocol. So if you are starting with HMG or FSH 75 IU, then you give it regularly for 7 days. Then in 7 days, if there is no response, then only you increase the dose. So you don't increase the dose immediately. So this is called as step-up protocol, where you increase the dose only when required. Now this is a step-down protocol, where you start with a dose, and if you find that the dose is higher, then you decrease the dose after 7 days. However, I personally don't recommend a step-down protocol. Now there is something called as individually adjusted treatment schedule. This allows successive increment of gonadotrophin dose by reducing the cost. So this is also a favored approach. A combined dose protocol along with clomiphene citrate, if it is shown that only gonadotrophin treatment will give you better pregnancy rates, but it has got a risk of OHSS and the cost is also high. So in those cases where the cost is the issue, in those patients you should use combined dose protocol of clomiphene citrate along with gonadotrophins, and these gonadotrophins can be used in a variable dose, either starting day 2 along with clomiphene citrate, or in a sequential form where clomiphene citrate is given for first 5 days and then you add gonadotropin. So this is about how you use a combined dose therapy. So initial 5 days you can give clomiphene citrate or letrozole, and on the 8th day if there is no follicular growth, then you add gonadotropin in a dose of around 75 IU initially. If the patient doesn't respond, then in the next cycle you can increase the dose. However, increasing the dose directly can cause problems. And this is the next protocol where you start clomiphene citrate on day 2 and start gonadotropin on day 3. So this is the next protocol. This can give you more number of follicles. So this protocol will give you 1 or 2 follicles. However, this protocol will give you 3 or 4 follicles. So it depends on how many number of follicles you want. Then you grow the follicles, you see for the sonography. Once the follicle size reaches 18 to 20 millimeter, you can give trigger with HCG. This is in a dose of 5,000 to 10,000 IU. And around 40 hours after that, you can plan a IUI, or you can ask the patient to keep contact next day of trigger. So that this is called as timed intercourse. So either you can give a ovulation induction with timed intercourse, or you can do a IUI between anywhere between 40 to 44 hours. What is this newer protocol of adding antagonist? So this is a little bit different. I won't go into the detail and confuse you. But whenever you are using gonadotropins, the LH surge, which is occurring naturally, can occur a little bit early. And because this LH surge occurs early, there can be problems in the pregnancy rate. So this is a different protocol where we add antagonist to this, how we can increase the success rate of IUI. So this is only done for those patients who want to go for IUI, not done otherwise. So the rate of premature LH surge is very high if you are not using antagonist. If you are using antagonist, the rate of premature LH surge decreases, and therefore we get a better success rate. So the pregnancy rate with antagonist is high, without antagonist is low. This is the cumulative pregnancy rate. GnRH administration in gonadotropin, GnRH antagonist can help and increase the pregnancy rate. Now, in polycystic ovaries, what do we do? PCOD patients. So gonadotropins to be used are usually urinary FSH or recombinant FSH. You don't use HMG because already the LH levels are high, so you don't want any LH action in the first scenario. So you can use urinary FSH, highly purified FSH, or recombinant FSH. What are the problems of regular dose protocol? So this can cause some problems and cycle cancellation, OHSS, the risk of OHSS. So this has to be monitored. So we have seen, friends, what all we can do for our patients. We can use clomiphene citrate, we can use letrozole, we can add clomiphene citrate with gonadotropins in the form of HMG. We can add FSH or highly purified FSH or recombinant FSH for PCOD patients. Then we can use only gonadotropin protocol. We can use a letrozole or a letrozole with gonadotropin protocol. If the patient is not responding, if it is a case of PCOD, we can add metformin. Suppose the patient is not responding, in the initial stage only you have to see whether the patient is hypothyroid. If the patient is hypothyroid, then also the response is poor. Then you have to add entroxin or thyroxine. If the patient is having high prolactin levels or hyperprolactinemia, in those patients also the response to the treatment is poor. In those patients you add cabergoline. So now this cabergoline is a very good drug than bromocriptine. So I am giving cabergoline if the prolactin levels are high, more than 24. Then I am giving cabergoline in a dose of 0.25 milligram weekly or 0.5 milligram weekly dose for around 4 doses. Now, what are the special situations in treatment? So if the patient is having obesity, then what ovulation induction you should use? So it is very important to advise lifestyle modification to the patient, weight reduction, so that our ovulation induction agents act. Otherwise, the ovulation induction agent will not act and it will be a failure of treatment. So for obese patients, we need to advise weight reduction. And how much weight they need to reduce? So suppose the patient is of 70 kg, they need to reduce at least 10% of their body weight, which is 7 kg. Similarly, this depends upon the BMI. The BMI should be brought down as much as possible, less than 25, but at least 10% of weight reduction is very, very helpful. What do we do in polycystic ovarian patients? So So as I said, PCOD patients are difficult to stimulate by ovulation induction. So for these patients also, lifestyle modification in the form of exercise daily for half an hour, weight reduction will help for polycystic ovaries patients. Even sometimes we get lean PCOD patients where weight is not an issue. So those patients also exercise will help. In patients of PCOD where the LH levels are very high, in these patients we can give oral contraceptive pills in the form of drospirenone plus ethylene estradiol to normalize the hormonal value, and then we start with stimulation. So all this will help. And also use of metformin in selected patients where there is hyperinsulinemia, obesity. In these patients, you can add metformin so that our ovulation induction is successful. Now, friends, we need to be careful whenever we are treating patients of endometriosis or poor responders. What do we mean by that? Endometriosis is a condition where endometrium grows outside the uterus in an ectopic place, in a place which is outside the uterus. And this can be in the ovary or this can be in the pelvis. So suppose there is endometriosis, the ovaries are quite damaged, and therefore we can get a very poor response in cases of endometriosis. So in endometriosis, we have to remember that we are bound by time, and therefore we should not keep on giving medicines for endometriosis patient for months together. We should act in a planned manner. We should give ovulation induction with time intercourse trial of around 3 to 6 months maximum. If that is not successful, we can shift to IUI if the tubes are patent. If the tubes are not patent, then we have to go for IVF. If ovulation induction with timed intercourse and IUI is not successful, then also in these patients of endometriosis, we need to shift to IVF. Now, what is poor responders? Friends, in your practice, I urge to you to kindly check for ovarian reserve. How do we check for ovarian reserve? Is by doing two simple tests. One is AMH testing. This is the blood test, and this has to be done in a standard lab. Any lab will not give you better results. So do it in standard labs where the AMH standardization protocols have been followed. Now, what is the normal AMH levels? Normally, AMH levels of around 2 to 4 are considered as normal. Whenever AMH levels are dropping below 2, then it should indicate that these patients may have a decreased ovarian reserve. Why I am saying may? Because not each patient of low AMH will have a poor ovarian reserve, because this has to be seen also on the sonography by doing the antral follicle count. So only low AMH levels is not important. We have to see the antral follicle count on the ovaries by doing good transvaginal sonography. A transvaginal sonography by 2-dimension or 3-dimension is very, very important. At Oasis Fertility, we also do the ovarian Doppler, where we check for the ovarian blood flow in such patients. And this is also helpful to see whether the patients are good responders or poor responders. So friends, whenever studies are done on these patients, we come to see about the results. And we all know, we have seen that if it is a case of unexplained infertility, ovulation induction by letrozole, which has a success rate of around 5 to 8%. If it is a normally ovulating woman and you are using clomiphene citrate as ovulation induction, and if you are able to recruit 2 or 3 follicles, then your success rate slightly increases to around 8 to 10%. But this has got a limited success. Therefore, if you add gonadotropins and if you add IUI to your treatment, so only oral ovulations will give you a poor success rate of around 5 to 8%. But if you are adding IUI, then your success rate will increase to around 10 to 15%. If you are using gonadotropins along with IUI, then your success rate will increase up to 20%. So 20% is what the single month pregnancy success rate for IUI. So different protocols we have discussed, and we have seen that different patients can have we can use different protocols for different patients. However, we have seen some take-home messages. I will not go into this study details. So we will come to the conclusions, but before that, complications of ovulation induction or ovarian hyperstimulation. We can have multiple pregnancy, like twin pregnancy, triplet pregnancy. Then there can be cases of pelvic inflammatory disease if the stimulation is not done in a proper way. Then if there is a ovarian hyperstimulation and the pregnancy, there are more than two follicles, a slightly increased risk of ectopic pregnancy. So for conclusion, if you are treating a normal patient, then clomiphene citrate is the first line of drug. Letrozole is the second line of drug for clomiphene citrate failure patients, but it is the first line of drug when you are treating a PCOD patient. So whenever you are treating PCOD, remember letrozole. Whenever you are treating a normal patient, remember clomiphene citrate. Whenever you have clomiphene citrate failure or letrozole failure, you can either do a laparoscopic ovarian drilling for PCOD patients only. Laparoscopic ovarian drilling should not be done for a normal reserve patient. Only when the patient is PCOD, then only you should do. And whenever your first line drugs fail, if CC and letrozole is not acting, then you can use gonadotropin as your treatment. Gonadotropin can be used individually or it can be added with clomiphene citrate or letrozole. So you can use low dose gonadotropins after proper evaluation so that you prevent ovarian hyperstimulation and other complications. In cases of PCOD, endometriosis and high responders, you need to give special attention and you can take expert help for these patients for ovulation induction. So friends, it's not about being perfect, it's about effort. And when you bring that effort every single day, that's where the transformation happens. And that's how the change occurs. So in life, we have to change somewhere, we have to change our attitudes, we have to take some action. Only knowledge is not important. Knowledge is just a potential power. But whenever you act on that knowledge, then only you're going to get results. So for any help, we are there to help you. We are just a phone call away to take any expert help. Oasis Fertility, we are giving this free online WhatsApp consultation for patients, and this is open to all consultants also. Thank you for your patient hearing. I am ready for any question and answers if you have.
Hello. Sir, you said there is a follicular size will be 18 mm. Then what will be the endometrium thickness will be, what will be the size to?
Okay. So thank you, madam, for your question. I said that optimal endometrial size should be more than 7 millimeter. If it is less than 7 millimeter, the results of your ovarian stimulation will be little bit poor. You will get poor results. So if you think that the endometrium is not growing and you have already given ovulation induction and 5 days is completed, then in that case you can add estrogen in a dose of 2 milligram twice a day or thrice a day to these patients so that the endometrium grows to more than 7 millimeters.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There is a question in the chat box by Dr. Kalyani. Kindly repeat the clomiphene citrate dose. So clomiphene citrate can be started in a dose of 50 milligram daily for 5 days, starting from day 2 of cycle or day 3 of cycle for next 5 days. If the patient is having a little bit higher weight, in those patients you can start with a dose of 100 milligram per day. And if you are seeing no response with 50 or 100, then in the next cycle you can increase the dose up to 150 milligram per day. Studies say that it can be used in a more higher dose, but I usually don't go with a dose of more than 150 because this will not help. So 50 milligram per day for 5 days or maximum 150 milligram per day for 5 days. That is the dose of clomiphene citrate.
And sir, sonography has to be done alternate day.
Yes. So if you give clomiphene citrate only or letrozole, in these patients, you don't need to monitor till around 8 or 10 days of the cycle. So you can start sonography on day 8 or day 10, whichever is better for you. If you're starting on day 10, then an alternate day is better because sometimes the ovulation can occur early. It is not that the ovulation will occur always on day 14 or day 15. So it is better to start the sonography on day 8 or day 10. Suppose you are using gonadotropins, then in that case you need to start the monitoring early. So that is started as early as day 6. So alternate day sonography is better. Yeah. So I've got a question from Dr. Yogita. What is the ideal size of exact matured ovum for ovulation. So if you are giving clomiphene citrate, we can wait till a size of around 21 millimeter or 20 millimeter, at least 20 millimeter, but 21 millimeter is also okay. Then you can give a trigger injection of HCG 5000 or 10,000. But if you are using gonad, okay, am I audible? There was some connection problem.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, so I can see the chat box. So it was a question was about lower ovarian reserve. So how do we assess the result? So if the AMH count is low, I told, or the antral follicle count is low, you call it as lower ovarian reserve. AMH is less than 2, or the antral follicle count in each ovary. Every ovary should have at least 5 antral follicles. If it is more than 5, it is good. If it is less than 5, then the antral follicle count is low. So in these patients, it is better that we don't prolong very long. So a rapid action is very important. So for these patients, you should go in a timely manner. So only give them a trial of around 3 months of ovulation induction with timed intercourse. If it is not successful, it is better to shift to ovulation induction with IUI for this patient. So in that we call it as controlled ovarian hyperstimulation. So controlled ovarian hyperstimulation with IUI for around 3 to 4 cycles. So do only 3 to 4 cycles of IUI if you are planning, not more than that, because the AMH is low. So we are bound by time. So we have to act in a timely fashion. If there is no result with ovulation induction with time intercourse, if there is no result with IUI also, then you have to give the patient the advice of IVF, because these patients, if the result keeps on falling, then later on the results of IVF will also be poor. So it is better for the patient's sake only, so that the patient goes to IVF rather than waiting for the patient to land up and decreasing the reserve very low to very low levels. There is next question. Can we cancel the cycle or wait for rupture? So if the follicle is growing and if you have given trigger and the follicle hasn't ruptured, then what we do? So usually whenever we are giving a rupture injection, HCG, we have to see that the HCG is of a good company. We get very good results, consistent results with that HCG. And also whenever if the follicle is not rupturing even after 48 hours of giving HCG, in that case you may give a repeat dose of HCG of 5000. So total dose is either we start with a 5000 dose or a 10,000 dose. Maximum we can give 15,000 IU of HCG. If the extra 5000 is given only if rupture hasn't occurred with 10,000 IU. So we can give that extra dose. Even after giving this, the rupture hasn't occurred, we have to see whether that follicle has become a hemorrhagic cyst. Then if it is the case, then it goes in a condition called as luteinized unruptured follicle syndrome, for which the treatment is different. Suppose the follicle doesn't rupture and it becomes a cyst, we need to observe it. We need to tell the patient that the chances of pregnancy are low in this case. They can try naturally. Sometimes ovulation occurs late, so this is how we can advise. But however, for these patients where the follicle hasn't ruptured, before going for the next cycle of stimulation, a day 2 sonography is very important, and this is called as baseline scan. If there is a cyst, don't start stimulation. Day 2 sonography looking a cyst is very important if the follicle is not ruptured. Okay, so I think I am clear. If follicle size, Dr. Yogita is asking me, if follicle size is becoming 30 millimeter, even though we have given UCOG 5000, what to do in this case? Will follicle reabsorb automatically? So as I told you, if ovulation hasn't occurred with 5000 IU, after 48 hours, you can repeat HCG in a dose of 5000, or maximum dose of 15,000 IU can be given for HCG. But at 30 millimeter, it is less likely that if you give HCG, the follicle will rupture because the wall has become thick. And therefore, at 30 millimeter, there is no advantage of giving a repeat HCG. In this case, you need to tell the patient that this has become a cyst, and usually 90% of the times the cyst will go away on its own. You don't need to do anything. Only thing is that you do a day 2 sonography on the next cycle. In the next cycle, if there is a cyst, give her OC pill for 1 month, the cyst will resolve, and then start the stimulation in a subsequent cycle. Okay, the next question is from Dr. Shubhangi. What will you suggest if endometrial priming is not increased with estradiol 2 milligram 3 times a day? A very good question. So if there is endometrium which is not increasing with ovulation induction and with estradiol 2 milligram TDS, then there is a problem in the endometrium, because the ovulation induction itself, the follicle size which is increasing, will also give endogenous estrogen secretion. The estrogen in the body is also increasing. On the top of it, you are also giving exogenous estrogen in the form of tablet estradiol. In spite of this, if the endometrium is not increasing, there is a problem in the endometrium. There can be adhesions in the endometrium. It can be due to some infection in the endometrium. This infection can be bacterial infection or tubercular infection. This has to be seen. And it's always better if the endometrium is remaining below 6-7 millimeter, 6.5 or even 5. In that case, it is always better to post the patient for hysteroscopy, see what is the cavity like from inside, and if the cavity is abnormal, you can correct it immediately in the hysteroscopy. And if you can take the endometrial sample and send it for bacterial examinations. If you are suspecting tuberculosis, you can send it for TB PCR. If you are suspecting it like bacterial infection, then you can send it for that. So that this is how you can come to diagnosis and treat that condition. Hysteroscopy itself will lead to improvement in endometrium if there is no major problem. But if there is adhesions, if there is tuberculosis, then you have to deal, then it is a different situation, then you have to deal it differently. What we have to do if follicle size is reduced from 14 to 11 millimeter. Okay, so Dr. Aradhana, I think
analysis should be very much perfect.
This usually doesn't happen.
What we
The follicle size will not decrease anytime. There is a problem in the sonography done in this case. So as I said, you need to be very careful whenever you are sending your patient to a radiologist. You should ask them not to do a trans-abdominal scan. It is always better to do a trans-vaginal scan. But if you are not getting consistent result with the radiologist, if you are getting such reports that the follicle was initially 14, then it became 11, this usually will not occur 90% of the times. Sometimes the follicle can burst at an early stage, but in that case, it will not remain 11 millimeter. It will already must have ovulated with a less size follicle. However, whenever you're getting this kind of reports, you need to be careful and check. Dr. Sanjeevan is asking me about the anticipation of OHSS in different protocols. So, letrozole, very less risk of OHSS. So, if you are suspecting that the patient is having PCOD, the patient is having, how can you identify that the patient is having PCOD? Not only on the sonography report. So, only sonography report is not important for identifying PCOD. It is anovulation, that is, you are having irregular periods. The cycle duration is more than 35 days. Secondly, there are signs of hyperinsulinemia. What are the signs? The patient is obese, there is high sugar levels. This will indicate hyperinsulinemia. And thirdly, if you are having signs of hyperandrogenism, like there is hirsutism or inappropriate hair at inappropriate location, then you have male pattern baldness in the woman, or you have acne, multiple acne on the face or on the upper back, then these are the patients where you suspect PCOD. in this kind of patients, you should not use clomiphene citrate as a first drug. The first drug should be letrozole. So letrozole has got the least risk of OHSS. But if the patient is not responding to letrozole, you may have to add a higher dose of letrozole, or you may have to add gonadotropins along with letrozole. So this is what you can do. Suppose you are using clomiphene citrate. So in these patients, it may the patient may respond to clomiphene citrate or may not respond. In this case, you may have to add other drugs which help ovulation. So that is about the question. And OHSS is significantly higher with clomiphene citrate and gonadotropin protocols. So whenever you are giving clomiphene citrate or gonadotropins, you should be careful about OHSS. Dr. Yogita is asking me which regimen is best of CC for induction, day 3rd or Saturday, or from day 1st to day 10 of cycle. So usually I'm so sorry for the disturbance. There was a phone call. Okay. So from day 3 to day 7 or from day 1 to day 10. So day 1 to day 10 is only for those who are having CC failure or CC resistance. You can give a longer duration for CC. Otherwise, the standard regimen is to give from day 2 or day 3. So I am usually following day 2 or day 3 of clomiphene citrate rather than day 1 to day 10. Day 1 to day 10 is only for those patients where you are suspecting CC resistance or where the endometrium was poor. You can start a little bit early, as I said. Can we add letrozole in same cycle if CC fails? I personally don't feel so, because if CC fails, it's always better that you see what is the cause of CC failure. It can be a CC resistance where the CC is not acting, or it can be some other cause. Like in PCOD patients, it's very difficult for stimulation, especially for PCOD patients. Otherwise, CC is better to stimulate. But if you are not seeing stimulation, then in that case, in the same cycle, you can do anything. You can add gonadotropins to that cycle, but letrozole in the same cycle, personally, I have not used or not come across such a protocol. Next question is from Dr. Shubhangi. Hysteroscopy is done for the patient and the endometrial sampling is showing chronic endometritis and cervical stenosis with bilateral patent tubes, follicle growing well in last cycle with letrozole, but her ET is 6 millimeter on day 16. And now her antral follicles are 5 and endometrial thickness is 2.7 on day 3. Should we plan for IVF for such kind of patients? So if you have got a case of chronic endometritis, the endometrium is definitely at a problem. You can treat her with antibiotics. But if again, after doing a hysteroscopy, the endometrium is back to square one, coming to 6 millimeter, we are left with very less options during IUI or normal ovulation induction. So can be a candidate for IVF, but because of the poor antral follicles, the number of antral follicles is also less, and the endometrium is also poor. So more than 2 factors. But we have to not only see these things, we have to see age of the patient, we have to see the duration of infertility, we have to see the actual treatment what is taken till now. And then only we can decide about the next line of management. However, for this patient, if you are asking chronic endometritis, you need to give a cycle of doxycycline with metronidazole for around 14 days. And this will cure her chronic endometritis. If the patient responds well and the endometrium improves, then well and good. Otherwise, we may have to think about other options for endometrial care. Other options of endometrial thickness, what madam has asked is we can give some other agents which have got a role which is not very justified in the studies. One is you can use low dose aspirin in such kind of patients to improve the endometrial thickness. Another is that you can use sildenafil citrate in a dose of 25 milligram twice a day for such kind of patients where there is a borderline endometrial thickness. These patients won't respond if the endometrial thickness is less than 6 millimeter. Then it is very less likely that it will respond to medicines. We have to give some other therapies for such kind of patients. And if the endometrium is not responding even to all these kind of treatments, we may have to use higher end treatments like GCSF or platelet-rich plasma and endometrial rejuvenation therapies, which we practice especially for fertility IVF patients. Dr. Hina, thank you for your comment and feedback that the lecture was good. Any other questions anyone likes to ask?
माझा पण Zoom वर lecture चालू.
Sir, questions on WhatsApp. That how many times we can do the ovulation induction?
Yes, good question. So if the patient is not having any problems, she has not a longer duration of infertility, like one year she has been pregnant, she has been married since 1 year, she has come to you immediately. In such kind of patients, you can do ovulation induction for around 6 to 7 cycles maximum, what I suggest. This can be done in a continuous manner. But even after 6 to 7 cycles of stimulation, if she's not responding, it is better to give rest for these agents and think about what is the problem. So 6 cycles of ovulation induction is what I recommend. If there is no response, then you can think of some other line of treatment, like if there is problem in the tubes, if there is problem in the uterus, if the egg reserve is very high or egg reserve is very low. Such kind of patients will require special attention, special care. You can do tubal patency test after your ovulation induction also. So for first ovulation induction, if there is no history of tuberculosis, no history of PID, you may not do tubal patency test. But suppose your ovulation induction has not worked, 6 cycles you have given, 7 cycles you have given, you should not keep on repeating these cycles more than that. You should assess the patient once again. You can do a tubal patency test. Some patients you may have to do HSG. So this is how you can do, and yes, I think that's how we can answer this.
One more. Can we do the induction if follicle is normal on one side and hemorrhagic cyst on other side? Is there chances of rupture of cyst?
Yeah, you can do it. Hemorrhagic cyst usually won't rupture. So if there is a follicle on one side, you can definitely give trigger.
Doses of gonadotropin.
Yes. I said that gonadotropins, whenever you are using, you need to be very, very careful because you have to monitor the cycle. You have to do ultrasonography very frequently, starting from day 6. So you can give gonadotropins in 2 forms. Either you start them with clomiphene citrate or letrozole from day 2, which is risky. Otherwise, you can give gonadotropins after your clomiphene and letrozole is over, right, from day 5 or day 6. Then you can start. Usually the starting dose should be very low. For a normal patient who is not PCOD, you can use in a dose of around 50 to 75. Usually get an ampule of 75. So that is maximum which I recommend. However, for a case of PCOD, you should not use 75 in the first go. You should use 37.5, half dose.
So one more question.
Yes, please.
If we gave OC pills in insulin resistance or in hirsutism with metformin for longer periods, will insulin resistance will subside permanently or it will only temporary?
Usually it will subside only for a temporary period if you are not treating the cause. PCOD is not a condition or a disease which will be cured completely. It's a condition. I usually always say that PCOD is not a very deadly disease, but it's a condition which remains in the body for a very longer period. However, you can control your symptoms of PCOD. That is very important. And for that, lifestyle modification is the most important treatment. Only metformin or OC pills will control only for a short duration. But if the patient is adopting a healthy lifestyle, she can have regular cycles only on the healthy lifestyle. She reduces weight, she comes to a normal weight, she'll have very good effects of it. No need of metformin also in those cases. But if fertility is an issue, then we can use metformin. If she wants to regularize the cycle, then we can use OC pills. Otherwise, lifestyle modification is the most important treatment for those patients who want to conceive or don't want to conceive, do want to decrease their severity of PCOD.
Okay, sir. Should we conclude, sir?
Yeah. So I think I thank all members for attending. Whatever questions you have, we have formed a group. Dr. Shivangi Madam, thank you for forming the group. So you can ask the questions in a group, and we will definitely respond to the questions. Any queries, you can reach out to Oasis Fertility. We are available for any kind of technical help needed to you. If you want to do IUI of your patients, you can come down to our center. We are well equipped with all IUI and IVF facilities. If you want to do IUI yourself also, we'll help you out. Otherwise, if you want to plan an IUI center at your setup, we can also help you out with that. We can discuss, as we all discuss ovulation induction protocol, we can discuss protocols for IUI also. So best wishes to all of you for fertility. I hope this series of fertility helps you. Anytime I am reachable, you can contact me on WhatsApp or my number, or reach out to Oasis Fertility number. So thank you for giving us this opportunity to interact with all of you lovely people from FPA.
Okay, sir. Thank you all the participants for joining and asking so many queries. A big thank you to you, Dr. Nilesh sir, for efforts towards today's topic. The topic is so simple and nicely explained by sir. And also I appreciate the efforts of Oasis Fertility team to organize this session. Now I declare today's session. Our next session will, means details will be given on this WhatsApp group.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Shivangi.
Thank you, ma'am.